All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's SANS webcast. Full Packet Capture as a Strategic and Regulatory Imperative, sponsored by Endace. My name is Carol, author of SANS. Today's featured speakers are Matt Bromiley, SANS Certified Instructor, and Mark Evans, VP of Marketing at Endace. If during the webcast you have any questions for our presenters, please enter them into the Q&A window at any time. Please note that this webcast is being recorded, and a copy of the slides and recording of this webcast will be available for viewing later today and can be found on the SANS registration page. And with that, I'd like to hand the webcast over to Matt.
Awesome, Carol. Thank you so much. Apologies, everyone. I lost my button there for just a moment. Everyone, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. It's never been more appropriate for me to say that introduction than it would be right now. I'm joined today with Mark Evans. Mark, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. I think you're referring to the fact it's like 5 in the morning here,
It's a
right?
little bit early for Mark, just so everyone knows. It's a little bit early for Mark this morning, so I'm gonna do most of the talking and most of the leading here. Not because we don't want to hear from Mark; it's quite the opposite, actually. But because it's early. It's early for Mark. And Mark, if
It's
I'm not
very early.
mistaken, you're in the middle of a conference right now, I think, as well, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been at Cisco Live here running the SOC with Cisco
Gotcha. I
in
mean, which
Melbourne.
is which is awesome unto
Oh, it's
itself,
fantastic.
which is really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
So it's actually great to have you here, and it's also like really great to know that you're down there doing the thing as we're talking about the
yeah,
thing too,
indeed.
which is cool. But
Yeah,
with that said, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. For anyone else who might be joining us from that part of the world, there's actually quite a, I know a lot of you are very familiar with Endace and how it does what it does and whatnot. If you're around in I'm going to say, in the same time zone that Mark is, by all means, please go and try and find him if he gets
yeah,
if he gets some sleep.
indeed.
So awesome. All right, let's go ahead and jump into it. So this, just so everyone knows, I actually had a chance to speak with Mark and his team way back at RSA. RSA 2025 is when we talked about, I would say maybe the beginning of this project and bringing it about, maybe even a little bit longer, but it's been such a long tail thing because the world has been changing so much in the time that we've talked about this that it's been an awesome project to kind of see come together, primarily because the industry has been changing, the globe has been changing, and this particular topic that Mark and I are going to get into today focuses specifically on how the world is changing and the extent to which it's changing, and how full packet capture capabilities help organizations around the globe tap into this. And this is one of the most, I think, one of the most exciting parts of being able to work with Mark and his team at Endace on this is for one of the, I'm not going to say for the first time, but for one of the most memorable in recent times, we've taken a global approach to a security issue, and we've really zoomed in on, and I'm zooming in on the globe feels a little unfair, right? Because I mean, like zooming in on the globe means that you're focusing on one out of the planets. But where I'm going with this is the world of regulatory compliance and the world of full packet capture needs has changed so much that this was an awesome project to come together and focus on, where is it a strategic imperative versus where is it a regulatory imperative? Where is it actually required? And there's been some really, really cool changes in the industry. Mark, I'm not sure, I didn't get a chance to share all this with you, but over the past 4 months or so, I've had a chance to teach SANS in a few different places, Europe and North America mostly. But during that time, we've had a couple of new regulations go live, which has been interesting.
Indeed.
We've seen changes around the world from an EMEA and an APAC perspective as well. And I'm not going to say it's a moving target, but a hat tip to you and the folks at Endace for really trying to tap into, like, okay, it's a bullseye on a swinging pendulum, right? And it's something that we've got to zoom in on. So an awesome effort from you guys, and I hope we're going to get to capture that with some of our attendees on this webcast here today. For those of you who might be watching the recording of this, there is going to be a paper made available, which we might have some links posted. If not, it's likely posted with the webcast link, There's also going to be a series of follow-ons that will be made available in the next couple of weeks as well, with specific regulations. I'll mention those as we go through the webcast today. But if you're watching this recording, and if the recording is, I'd say, within a week or two old, check back, because there's going to be more stuff published and more things made available as well as we talk about these here. Getting into our agenda today, one of the first things I want to dig into is, the changing regulatory landscape, which is kind of the crux and the initial part of the conversation that Mark and I had way back when. Then we'll get into full packet capture from a technical foundation perspective, get into some global regulatory drivers. We'll talk a little bit about some localized ones. And then from a full packet perspective, implementation challenges, and then I guess strategic approach. So the last two parts of today's agenda focus heavily on implementation and some thoughts and guidance on how to do those successfully and what that looks like. A couple of high-level topics or caveats for everyone. Number one, Endace is a full packet capture solution. And Mark, I don't have a slide for this one, but would you mind, and I don't want to put you on the verbal spot too much, but would you mind giving us a little bit of a brief as to how Endace does what it does, and we can use that to carry through the rest of the talk here?
Sure, Ken. So we specialize in packet capture. Actually, you'll see on my t-shirt, I don't know whether you can see that. This is the sock t-shirt that everybody was wearing. PCAP or it didn't happen. That's our view of the world. So we specialize in packet capture. We've been doing it for 25 years, just about. We work with a lot of federal government, large banks, any large organization that has its own NOC and SOC and realizes the value of PCAP for resolving networks performance issues or and the topic here, security threats and threat hunting. We have solutions that allow you to capture at very high speed and have very deep storage, so you can store days, weeks, or months of PCAP data. And you can capture that data from cloud, private or public, or on-prem. So we make appliances for on-prem, and we have virtual appliances for cloud environments. And then you can see all of that data from a single pane of glass. So we have very fast search across all of that, often petabytes of data. And we integrate with a whole variety of solutions from different vendors. So at Cisco Live, which I've just been at, we were integrated with Splunk, Cisco's Secure Network Analyzer, and firewalls, and Cisco XDR. So for many of those tools, the SOC analysts, when they were investigating an issue, they could right-click and go straight to the packets that related to that particular event in literally in seconds. So that, in a nutshell, is what we do. We specialize just in packet capture. We don't do the detection. We work with our partners like Cisco and Palo Alto and Fortinet and lots of others who do that bit of it.
Yeah. And Mark, correct me if I'm wrong here. And I said I wouldn't ask you too much, but now I've just got questions for you. If anyone's been at, I think, RSA or Black Hat over the past year, they were under an Endace umbrella. Is that fair to say?
Correct, yeah. So at RSA, when I saw you, we were in the SOC there. We captured all of the traffic off the RSA conference network. And then the next one we did was Cisco Live in San Diego. And then that was followed by Black Hat in Vegas, and now Cisco Live here. And I think we did GovWare in Singapore too. Awesome. So basically we hoover up all of the conference traffic and monitor that.
Yeah. So for anyone who's curious about real-time application, and the reason I'm going through this route, Mark, is as I've gone through and taught advanced network forensics before with SANS, which I've done. And by the way, if I've got any 572 alumni on the chat, or on the webinar, great to have you here. One of the things that's always come up has been like, oh, I can't do full PCAP. I can't do this. I can't do that. And this ties into our first section of the changing regulatory landscape where, this, I don't want to say doubtful approach, but this kind of, oh, it doesn't work approach, just because folks have either tried to roll their own or they've tried to use software before that doesn't work. Unfortunately, that idea of, oh, I don't have to do this anyways, is actually starting to go away in certain areas. And we're going to take a look at kind of what those look like as we go through this. The first topic here is the changing regulatory landscape. And to drill into this a little bit further, we're no longer seeing, kind of spot ad hoc requirements where there's this idea of, oh, okay, if you're based in a certain region, locale, or country, or under a certain jurisdiction, you can kind of decide and choose, what type of monitoring, what type of detection, what type of security program you'll have, as long as it meets kind of a base minimum requirement, which doesn't really impact anyone, number one. Number two, the traditional monitoring approach of, oh, I'll just look at metadata and I'll just look at things in a SIM. I'll just look at the logs, right? I'll just look at the high level stuff. I don't need deep packet inspection details. I don't need full packet capture. I don't need that type of historical record, is actually starting to go away for two reasons. One of them is high level regulatory requirements. And we'll talk about some of those actually as we get into it. We'll take a look at some regulatory requirements from the United States. We'll look at things over in the EU. And in fact, in some of the papers that we've worked on with Mark and team, we've taken a look at specific requirements in Australia, specific requirements in Saudi Arabia. There are regions and locales where full packet capture is either explicitly called out, right? Or everything kind of leads towards it. But maybe more threat focused, which is a primary driver for us here, is modern threats no longer, I should say, detecting or responding to modern threats no longer relies on or can be done solely with just logs and metadata either. There's been an uptick in how adversaries have taken, used, and abused network protocols, network capabilities, and it's gone one of two ways. Either they're doing the same old thing and it's not getting detected, or they're moving to a much more advanced state and it needs to be detected from a threat perspective. And for anyone who's like, well, what are the opposite ends of that spectrum, Matt? Some threat actors are still using plain text HTTP. And believe it or not, there are still some very, I don't want to say reputable C2s. And Mark, that's the wrong way to frame them. But there are still some well-known C2s or well-known threat actors out there who are using plain text protocols. And they're able to exist, under the wire because no one's looking. Well, unfortunately, we can't have that happening, right? We don't want someone who's kind of, running in the middle of the daylight and we're not able to see them because our head is turned the other way. The other end of that spectrum is adversaries who know and understand what it takes to be the needle in the haystack and to hide amongst the noise. And they're doing such deep network manipulation. And it's not just hiding inside of encrypted protocols. It might also be a combination of different protocols. It might be using a particular thing for C2, a particular thing for lateral movement. And that's, of course, internal versus external. And in other cases, it might be, binary-based protocols where there's not even any sort of human readable thing inside of it, certificate or not. It's just, seemingly like odd binary data. There's all sorts of ways that adversaries are tapping into it. And we can't approach modern threats the same way. We can't approach detecting them the same way. And the network becomes our least common denominator there. We juxtaposition that side by side with the global change in regulations. The things that have come up, and we'll look at a few of these in just a moment when we get into our regulatory drivers, but global regulations have now started to specifically call out full packet capture or historical evidence of data of network transfer over a certain period of time. And the third shift here that has come about is the need. And I'm going to get into the need versus the want in just a moment, but it's the need of getting away from reactive compliance to a proactive security architecture. And this one little line at the end there, Mark, is such a significant culture shift for a lot of organizations where it's, oh, okay, we've kind of waited until a thing has happened and then we've invested in the technology to make sure that thing doesn't happen again. A lot of regulations around the globe are moving towards you need to be ready. You need to be ready for this to happen. Mark, curious, I'm assuming you're seeing and hearing the same thing. You've traveled the world enough now to know, especially from an Endace perspective, exactly what, the change from reactive to proactive looks like.
Yeah. And I think the other component of that is the more people are talking about using AI
Mm-hmm.
to help them respond more quickly. the more they're realizing that in order to do that properly, you actually need the data.
You do.
And we've seen great examples of that in working in the SOCs at RSA and Cisco Live and Black Hat, where if you got the data, you can build automations really quickly and you can reduce the load on the SOC team immensely. But if you don't have the data, you can't even see the problem, you know?
Yeah. It's tough. Visibility becomes a key requirement for really responding to these threats correctly. And what that's done is we've seen a change in questions. Mark, I know you've seen this because you're the one that they call, but I've seen this too from a discussion perspective. And some of the classes that I've taught, conversations I've had with students, and then regulatory positions, as well as thinking more from a proactive stance, is it's not whether or not we can do, full packet capture. It's how fast can we get here? How fast can we get this thing deployed? How fast can we get it implemented? Because they can see the regulations coming down the line, and they can also see from a preventative measure, from a proactive stance, it's a necessary requirement. Full packet capture has become kind of a unified, and we're looking at it as a unified visibility capability for not just one or two, but multiple frameworks that an organization might fall under. And it's been a really big information driver underneath the hood. And what I mean by this, for anyone who's thinking like, well, Matt, I'm in a private industry. I don't know if I have regulatory requirements that force me to do this or not. And you may not have specific jurisdictional guidance. You may not fall under the U.S. federal requirements, M2131. You may not fall under an NIS2 or a NIS2 directive. If you're in the EU, you may or may not fall under DORA. You may or may not fall under the CRA and some of the other recent things that have come about. However, even if you don't fall under those, there are other regulations in place, or either upcoming ones or proactive stances that just behoove you to have full packet capture in place. And that's one of the things that we found when we talk about a unified foundation is anyone anywhere who needed to maintain data for threat detection capabilities or needed data to write better detections or better automations, full packet capture kind of delivered on all those needs, right? Number one. If you have a regulatory requirement or compliance requirement to maintain data, well, full packet capture covers that too. Three, if you have some sort of a legal requirement, and I don't mean regulatory or compliance, but if you're under some sort of a legal position or a legal hold or evidence collection or something like that, well, full packet capture is another way to get a hold of the data as well. So I've got three high-level business imperatives that are guiding this underlying foundation or this least common denominator of full packet capture being a thing. And that population is only growing. And it serves, when we think about cybersecurity technologies and implementations, a lot of times we do rest heavily on how easily can we use it to detect a threat actor. And I think that becomes one of the typical ROIs, Mark, when folks think about security technologies and capabilities is, oh, okay, I can write better detections with this thing. I can better detect adversaries with this. I can see more advanced mechanisms. There's a lot of emphasis placed on detection. One of the other things that's come about, especially in this paper, as we brought this together, is it's not just, and maybe it's not even the most important attribute anymore, is your ability to detect advanced threat actors. It is your ability to prove the data and the regulatory requirements of data transfer in your environment. It's your ability to understand impact. It's your ability to share with other organizations. It's your ability to correctly report and identify what has happened. So it's not just detection, right? It's also understanding data that's traversing in and out and inside of the organization. And to Mark's point about some of the conferences that they've monitored at and everything, what that really gets to is from a volume perspective, can I make these decisions regardless of volume? Can I make decisions impacted by full packet capture? And does that, can I make decisions at an executive level that bring in kind of these very, very high level metadata points, understanding that I am capturing all of this data under the hood? And Mark, this has been one of the most fascinating parts of, as we've talked about this, is if I were to give this same presentation a year ago, I would probably talk about, oh, advanced threat detection capabilities, and you can get in the packet and you can see this and you can see that. And we get into kind of the industry normal discussion of, encryption versus non-encryption. But our conversation has risen to such a different level now. Like the ability to assess impact and the ability to share qualified, quantified information with necessary peers and regulatory bodies is perhaps a biggest driver these days. It's
Yeah.
it's it's not just, oh, I can write better detection rules. It's, can I assess an impact at an executive level within record time to determine what my organization needs to do next?
Yeah, and I think that point about time is really important too.
Hmm.
Maybe you can do it without PCAP data, but it might take you a long, long time and it might not be conclusive. But
Right.
if you've got the PCAP at your fingertips, it can be fast and it's definitive.
Absolutely. And to further underline my least common denominator point, we don't get into like the graphic here necessarily, but threat actors, internal to external or external to internal threat actors. I'm going to have record of that, but insider threats, potential data transfers, data exfiltration, users moving stuff out, AI compliance needs, data transfer needs, cloud storage needs, all these things fall down to the same level of visibility. So, it's not whether, it's how quickly can we get this done. Now, there is the kind of a natural lead on here because Mark, you and I could spend the next 40 minutes talking about how much this is necessary, but I know there's already someone watching who's like, "Great, thanks guys, can't be done, already tried it, been there, done that, not available," right? And first off, the reason why I asked Mark to talk about some of the conferences that Endace has been at before has been, first off, zoom in on technically it is capable, right? We are at the point where the technology is also at the point of it can easily keep up with this if need be. So for anyone who tries to throw out that idea of, oh, you know what, not possible because my environment is too busy. My environment is too robust. I have too many users. It's too much storage. I'm here to let you know that Endace allows and helps you move beyond some of the traditional metadata logging and monitoring. There's four kind of high level points in here that I zoomed in on as things that kind of get offered and things that I saw in our discussion. Mark, comprehensive visibility. We've talked a little bit, but when we say comprehensive visibility, everyone, it's not just like, oh, I can see all the PCAP data. It's forensic grade records. We're getting down to a defensible position now of forensic grade records. I want real-time detection plus historical reconstruction. I want the ability to replay a session if I need to. I need to understand the timing and the sequence of it, and then establishing full PCAP as an authoritative source of truth as well. This is another kind of defensible area for folks to consider is metadata and logs and samples provide a quick snapshot. They provide an idea of what something may look like. And metadata is exactly that. It's data about data. It's never going to be as powerful as the actual data itself when I am needing to have a defensible position on things. If I, if I played you, if I gave you a paragraph and I said, here's a video, over there is a video of a car driving through a red light. And it took them somewhere between 5 to 6 seconds to do the thing. The video itself is 30 seconds long, and the car was red and it had two people sitting in it. It's pretty good metadata. You could craft a good story out of that. But if I actually show you the video and let you watch it, or if I have the ability to put you in the car, your response, your executive capability of making a better decision or understanding the risk actually associated with something, excuse me, is much stronger. And that's where we want to be from a full PCAP perspective. Is I don't want you to just implement a thing and then store all these PCAPs on a hard drive and say, okay, if I ever need this thing, right? It's also a business advantageous position of being able to reconstruct a scenario and then make a decision or an impact based on that scenario. I've got a little bit of a flow diagram here. I had some fun with some visualizations on where I would integrate full packet capture into an existing security stack. And Mark, I would love your thoughts on if there's anything additional here. But the other capability, or I should say, the other integral thing to full packet capture is it's not just another bullet point in a compliance framework, and it's not just another tool that needs to exist somewhere. It can actually enhance and enable a significant portion of your security stack. Mark talked earlier about integrating with a firewall. If you've got firewall in place, that can be, I think, kind of like a detection source, if you will, or an indication of, hey, there's something coming down the line, right? Full PCAP is not a firewall. There are two different things, even though they are looking at potentially the same type of traffic. Any sort of NIDS or NIPS system, right, is going to be an easy integration because I can do deeper packet inspection. My automation frameworks, my SIM, my SOAR, my API driven automation are all going to benefit from more data and better sourced data. And my ability to actually analyze from a threat perspective as to what happened is also going to be improved because, again, I'm looking at the true data underneath the hood. And we can easily sit here and talk at a high level idea about, hey, full packet capture makes things easier. But I like to look at it from a security perspective and say, I don't just get a regulatory benefit out of it, which we'll talk about on our next slide, but I also get a much better security stack as well. I get a much better and a much more enhanced security stack, and everything levels up because everything gets better with more data under the hood. Mark, I went very high level and generic in bringing these things together, but I'm curious, how do you have folks integrate Endace into their overall tech stack or their overall security stack? Like, does it level up across the board, or is it just network stuff?
It's typically, I mean, where we're involved, it's network stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, I mean, one of the great things about PCAP is that it is the ultimate correlator, right? You've got all this telemetry coming in from different sources, but PCAP gives you a really complete and precise timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we're capturing packets, we're time stamping them at like accuracy of 5 nanoseconds or something, right? So you have a very precise timeline of exactly when everything is happening, and that you can correlate all the other sources to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's particularly useful. The other thing is, so you didn't mention here XDR solutions,
Mm.
and we're seeing a trend towards people correlating the network data with like endpoint detection telemetry,
Mm-hmm.
and that really gives you a full picture of the whole, the whole process, the whole threat.
Yeah.
So it's very useful from that point of view as well.
I
Yeah.
was actually going to bring that up as one of the best integrations that you can possibly look at from a network perspective is combining with your endpoint data. Mark, there's so much in the industry right now that I think is driven
Mm,
by a focus on endpoints,
mm,
where we've kind of settled on, endpoints being the driver for your malicious user activity, endpoints being the driver for malicious processes. And we've got, and I don't just necessarily mean EDR, but you might have an endpoint agent that handles your DLP. You might have an endpoint agent that handles some sort of network segmentation or some sort of user profiling. You might even have a zero access one, or zero trust, if you will, not zero access, sorry, zero trust in place. Zero access is something very different. You might have a zero
mm.
trust capability in place that is also endpoint driven. And when you add in the flavor, or you add in, the full packet capture capability, it enriches and makes all of those more powerful and makes all of them
Yeah.
stronger. So I love it, Mark. Full packet capture as the great correlator, if you will.
Mm.
It's an awesome way to think about it.
The other quote I like, which comes from Jake Williams on session that we did, SANS session that we did, is,
Mhm.
people say, well, should I do endpoint or should I do NDR? EDR, NDR. So
Yeah.
you can't do one and not the other. You
Yeah.
know, no one says EDR or it didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Process
It
logs
was
or it
quite
never
good.
happened, right?
Yeah,
The,
exactly.
the closest I've ever heard of that would probably be like Sysmon or it didn't happen. But
Yeah,
even then,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
talking about EDR. This is a natural lead in for us into what I'm going to call kind of one of the bulk parts of the paper here. And as you can tell, Mark and I have spent the past like 25 minutes or so building up this idea of PCAP being useful for threat detection and adversarial analysis and historical replays. But there is a very important component of the regulatory requirements. This is a lead in for our next section here too, which is you don't just want to have a solution that is a correlation engine and that's kind of all it is. There's a bunch of regulatory things we need to keep in play. I need to be able to handle encrypted traffic. I need to be able to ensure that my evidence is stored in a way that it is legally defensible. And I need to be able to put the correct access controls around it. Retention policies, chains of custody, things like that. These are all, I think, data points that help make the evidence a little bit stronger. But it's another source of, or I should say, another food for thought area for folks who are looking at implementing different solutions. I want you to treat this kind of like a checklist. I want you to treat this as a checklist for things that you should have in place in order to make and build that defensible position. So this one expands a little bit, but we get into the global regulatory drivers and we talk about in different areas where you see full packet capture either mentioned specifically or kind of alluded to, if you will. And for anyone who's watching this from a recording perspective, we are actually going to have specific tear sheets for some of these frameworks and some of these regulatory callouts as well. But at the ISO 27001, there's enhanced logging requirements. The NIST cybersecurity framework, I believe we're actually not at 2.0. I think we're actually, is it 2, 3, revision 3? But in any event, an enhanced detection function that focuses on continuous monitoring. In NIST, SP 800, there's zero trust requiring never trust, always verify with packet level visibility. Common criteria is calling out government certification for full packet solutions. SOC 2 has called for enhanced or sophisticated threat detection and incident response capabilities. These are higher level international standards, if you will. When we get into regional, and I should probably say pro-Western from a NIST perspective, but when we get into NIS2 or the NIS2 directive, when we get into different Saudi regulations, regulations down in Mark's part of the world, this is where we get into very specific requirements or government mandates of full PCAP or packet retention requirements. Financial services, you're not left alone. There's penalties that are being, I should say, handed down for inadequate monitoring. We spent some time looking at healthcare. Healthcare has forensic grade evidence that enforces you to protect patient information. Critical infrastructure, especially addressed from a NIS2 or a NIS perspective. And then even the US government has got different mandates in place that are setting precedents or establishing a kind of a regulatory landscape that focuses on or includes full packet capture. One of the things that we call out from a US government perspective is M2131. As I mentioned earlier, NIS2, I think it's SAMA, SAMA over in Saudi. Mark, there's another one too, the ECC, I believe it is.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different regulations in place that create a necessary or mandatory foundation for having full packet capture in place. And I want to summarize the past 25 minutes for everyone. A defensible position from an enterprise security perspective is you can only establish that with data. You can only establish it with access to data, making quick snap fire decisions about impact or incident severity or potential exposure only comes from a strong foundation in data. Wash, rinse, and repeat. It is a strong foundation in data. Every time you've ever seen a breach release